Everyone loves to talk about classic muscle cars like they're pure gold. Big chrome, roaring V8s, names that defined an era: GTO, Chevelle, Torino, Mustang. But here's the truth. Not every classic muscle car aged well. Some are money pits, some are slower than a Prius, and others are so forgotten that even collectors scroll right past them online. So before you drop your savings on a barn find, let's break down the top 10 so-called muscle cars you shouldn't buy in 2026, with real prices, specs, and the reasons they're just not worth it anymore. 10. 1969 Ford Torino GT. Let's start strong, or, well, weakly strong. The Torino GT looked incredible in its day. That sleek fastback roof, racing stripes, and chrome bumpers that screamed performance. But looks were deceiving. The base GT packed a 302 cubic inch V8 with about 220 horsepower, basically, the same power you'll get from a modern minivan. It handled like a boat, drank gas like a tanker, and came with drum brakes that made stopping a full-body workout. Even the big block versions, like the 390 and 428, were overshadowed by Ford's own Mustangs and Fairlanes. Collectors don't line up for these anymore. The market's flooded with better Fords, and parts for the Torino GT are hard to find and expensive when you do. Market value in 2026, expect to pay around $22,000 to $40,000 for a solid driver, but resale is flat. Cool shape, nice nostalgia, but not a smart buy. 9. 1964 Dodge Dart GT. Back in '64, Dodge marketed the Dart GT as the affordable performer. And it was, if you defined performance as 0 to 60 in about 14 seconds. Most of these rolled off the line with a 170/6 engine making just over 100 horsepower. Yes, you could option the 273 V8, but only a quarter of buyers actually did. Today, those smaller engines make the Dart feel like an antique golf cart compared to modern traffic. Even if you find a V8 car, the old push-button automatic transmissions and fragile electrical systems can turn ownership into a headache. Market value, $12,000 to $26,000 depending on condition, but expect to spend more fixing it than driving it. Fun shape, neat nostalgia, but it's a slow classic with slower resale. 8. 1965 Rambler Marlin. The Marlin was AMC's big swing at the fastback trend. They saw the Mustang, saw the Barracuda, and said, let's make one too, but bigger. And that was the problem. It was built on a full-size chassis, so it handled like a cruise ship. Sure, it came with a 327 V8 making up to 270 horsepower, but the steering was slow, the suspension was soft, and it weighed almost 3,600 pounds. The design didn't help either. The roofline was awkward, the trunk opening tiny, and the styling just odd. It's the kind of car that turns heads for 5 seconds, then makes people ask, what is that? Market value, $10,000 to $22,000 depending on engine and condition. Rare, yes. Collectible, no. There's a difference. 7. 1969 Chevrolet Impala SS 427. On paper, this sounds like a dream, a 427 cubic inch big block putting out 390 to 425 horsepower. In practice, it's a giant, heavy cruiser that never found its place in the muscle car hierarchy. The Impala SS 427 weighed over 2 tons and handled like it. While the engine had grunt, it couldn't hide the sloppy steering, soft suspension, and old-school brakes. Plus, collectors prefer Chevelles, Novas, and Camaros, cars that actually define Chevy performance. Trim restoration is expensive, the SS-specific parts are rare, and fuel economy is criminal. Market value, $32,000 to $55,000 for a nice example, but don't expect big appreciation. It's a beautiful relic, but more show than go. 6. 1967 Mercury Cougar, base model. Here's the thing, the Cougar had potential. It shared Mustang DNA, added luxury touches, and introduced that iconic sequential tail light design. But the base version, total letdown. Under the hood was a mild 289 two-barrel V8, putting out about 200 horsepower. It was quiet, soft, and forgettable, and the fancy stuff, like vacuum-powered hidden headlights, tends to break more than it works. The XR7 and GT versions are cool, but the plain Jane base Cougars are often overpriced because people think all Cougars are collectible. They're not. Market value, $18,000 to $34,000 depending on condition. Unless it's a GT or XR7, this cat's been declawed. 5. 1968 Plymouth Fury 3, convertible. A big car with a big personality, but not a big following. The Fury 3 was more of a family cruiser than a true muscle machine. Even with a 383 V8 making 330 horsepower, it was still a massive, soft-handling convertible. In 2026, owning one means fighting constant maintenance battles, leaking tops, finicky hydraulics, and chrome trim that costs a small fortune to replace. The car's huge size makes it hard to park, heavy to steer, and slow to stop. Market value, $16,000 to $32,000 depending on condition. It's fun for weekend drives, just don't expect it to appreciate or handle like its smaller B-body cousins. 4. 1966 Pontiac Catalina 2+2. This car should have been a hit. It looked great, it had the numbers, a 421 cubic inch V8 with up to 376 horsepower, and it carried Pontiac's performance reputation. But the problem? It was simply too big and too expensive to compete. Collectors go for GTOs and Firebirds, not the oversized Catalina. And because only about 6,000 units were built, parts are extremely rare, which drives up restoration costs and scares off buyers. The 2+2 is the definition of a cool on paper car that just never connected. Market value, $35,000 to $65,000 depending on spec. Big, bold, and beautiful, but also slow, heavy, and hard to sell. 3. 1965 Chrysler 300L. The Chrysler 300L was meant to blend muscle and luxury, and it succeeded at being confusing. It was powerful, sure, a 413 cubic inch V8 pumping out 360 horsepower. But it was also gigantic, overly complicated, and loaded with electronic gimmicks that break faster than you can fix them. It had electric vent windows, power everything, tilt steering, and enough wiring to scare a modern technician. Even when it runs right, it's not sporty, it's a lounge chair on wheels. Only 2,845 were made, and finding parts for one today is like hunting a unicorn. Market value, $20,000 to $38,000. It's a luxury tank with muscle car badges. Impressive? Sure. Smart buy? No. 2. 1964 Buick Wildcat, Super Wildcat. Now this one hurts, because on paper it's a monster. The 425 cubic inch nailhead V8, dual 4-barrel carbs, and a 0 to 60 time under 8 seconds, serious stuff for 1964. But today, that same car feels slow, heavy, and awkward. Weighing over 4,000 pounds, the Wildcat guzzles gas like a jet. Handling is vague, the steering is sloppy, and the luxury bits, power seats, window motors, chrome trim, cost a fortune to fix. Even the Super Wildcat versions, which are legitimately rare, just don't bring big money because nobody really remembers them. Market value, $12,000 to $36,000. It's stylish, sure, but it's the car equivalent of a handsome gym bro who never shows up to work out. 1. 1966 Oldsmobile Jetstar 88. And here it is, the king of disappointment. The Olds Jetstar 88 was supposed to be the brand's big power cruiser, packing a 425 V8 good for up to 370 horsepower. On paper, that's great. But in reality, this thing couldn't decide what it wanted to be. It wasn't luxurious enough to compete with Buick, and it wasn't sporty enough to stand next to a 442. Oldsmobile killed the model the very next year, and collectors never looked back. No convertible option, awkward design carryovers, and a weak resale market killed it off completely. Most came with 3-speed manuals nobody wanted, and the few with 4 speeds are unicorns that still can't fetch real money. Market value, $9,000 to $18,000. It's a footnote in Oldsmobile history, and one of the least desirable, muscle, cars of the 1960s. So there you have it, 10 60s cars that look like legends, but drive like disappointments. Don't get me wrong, these cars matter. They're pieces of history, rolling snapshots of an era when chrome was king and gas was cheap. But that doesn't mean they're worth buying today. Most of them are heavy, inefficient, expensive to restore, and, worst of all, underappreciated by collectors. If you're shopping for something that'll hold its value, look for icons like the GTO, Chevelle SS, Mustang Fastback, Roadrunner, or Camaro Z28. They've got strong markets, steady demand, and real muscle under the hood. But if you find one of these 10, do yourself a favor, take a picture, not alone. Which one surprised you the most? Drop your pick in the comments, hit that like button if you learned something new, and subscribe for more real car talk. No hype, no dealership spin, just truth. Because nostalgia is cool, but keeping your wallet full, that's even cooler.